So it seems like this year is a lot about refinement in smartphones. I talked about this in one of my previous reviews about the Fold 4, and that seems to be the same case with Google again this year, and really refining what made the brand new 6 and 6 Pro with its new Tensor chip good, but not great. But this year it's been refined, possibly making it great. So let's look at the Pixel 7 Pro. So first of all is the Tensor. This is a Tensor 2 chip, and overall it's about the same, but more refinements in the core processor and more on the graphics side, as well as improvements. And then from there we have 12 gig of RAM, 128 gig, 256 gig, or 512 gig for space, depending on what your choosing is. Obviously, the higher in space you go, the more the price goes up. And from there, we've got 3 cameras, and the camera system is quite a bit different, as we can see here. And we can even see that the rail system, or the bump, the visor, as you may call it, is even different from last year. Whereas it was more of a glass finish, it's actually titanium this year. At first I was a little indifferent with it. I kind of like the glass feel, but obviously the titanium hold up over time better than the glass did. And you know, most people are going to have a case on it as well, so that'll help protect it anyways. So the main camera is a 50 megapixel. The secondary wide angle camera is a 12 megapixel, and then the main zoom is a 48 megapixel. That's a telephoto lens, and that's why that lens looks so much bigger, because it can actually do an optical zoom up to 5 times. After that, you're getting into digital zoom, but Google is using some special features, what they call super res zoom. The front facing camera is the same, I believe, as last year. It's still a 10 megapixel. Last year, as one of my most popular short videos is about improving the fingerprint reader, that has thankfully been much improved on this new model. As we can see, the time that it takes to actually take for the fingerprint to register is much faster than it was on the other. So that's primarily the hardware stuff. On to what is great about the Pixel. Obviously, being a Pixel, it is still one of the few that only have Android 13, and of course this is running on the Pixel layer, so you get pixel drops, you get special pixel features, you even get special pixel features that are only on the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro at this moment, like the auto detection blur to help remove blur. We'll go over some of those features, but these are all things that you get with a Pixel phone that you don't get anywhere else. This is where Google relies more on their software and their AI, really showing what this phone can do. Being Google and making this whole ecosystem, they really know software-wise what they can actually get out of a system like this. So some of those features are, of course, a lot of them are derived around the camera. And those go from the eliminating photo blurs to the assistance, like last year's, of removing background objects or removing objects from the picture that you don't want. That actually works even better this year. To a macro feature, essentially like some of these Samsung phones and other phones out there now that essentially take the wide angle lens and allow you to get very close in on a subject and be able to see the grains or individual fibers in a sheet. These are all things that you can do with a macro lens now that you weren't able to do in last year's Pixel. This is another one of the Pixel features. This is a little bit more of a hardware thing, but it does still derive a lot of software involved to get that image stabilized enough to do macro. Also added this year is the cinematic focus. So if you've got, like right now, I'm playing a video, I could use the phone to blur out my background and use the phone specifically for that instead of a high-end camera to do that load for me. Now obviously you're talking about AI still, and it's at the point where portrait has gotten really good at blurring out the background and making the subject pop more. But this is still a thing that obviously this is a newer feature that even some of the other companies are doing as well, or starting to work on. And you can tell that this is still in its infancy, just like the portrait mode was years ago that Google did. I believe it was Pixel 2 that really kicked that whole focus off for Google and many other manufacturers. I think eventually it will get close to what a camera can do. Obviously a camera is a wider lens, a bigger lens, lets in more light. You can do much more manual things with a full DSLR camera than you can a smartphone. So obviously one is still going to be better than the other. Magic Eraser, of course, that's another big feature of the Pixels that is back and works really good. I actually feel like it even works a little bit better. I don't know if that is just Android 13 or if that is specifically with the Tensor G2 processor. One of the other camera features that is very important to specific audiences is the True Tone. Google's worked even more on the second year of using the primary lens and making that True Tone improve. So if that's a big importance to you, you might want to look at this camera and this phone as an upgrade. Two-way translation service and having both translations occurring on the phone. This was something that was a big feature last year. This is again showing the strength of the Tensor G2 improving by that feature also improving this year. And one of the ways you can definitely tell that is in messaging and using the microphone for messaging instead than typing out. And seeing how good it detects. If you want to eliminate your typing, you're not good at swiping, whatever the reason may be, you'll actually find that you're faster using the microphone on this phone. Every time I've done a comparison between this and another phone that I typically use, the microphone in the Smarts and the Google Pixel line of phones is just so vastly better than the competition on the Android side that this really makes you, if you really like this feature, this is a definite thing to get a Pixel for. And with that also comes new features with the Recorder app that can differentiate between the voices and make indents in your recording, in your transcript, indicating voice 1 or voice 2. It just helps you have a better transcript and understanding which person may have been talking in your recording. And Google is also working on background noise filtering. So when you're on a call, you typically hear a lot of background noise. Maybe somebody's in a loud public area, a concert, or construction going on in the background. AI is at work again here, helping filter out all that background noise. So when you're receiving the conversation, the phone that you have is cutting a lot of that background noise out from the person on the other end. To another great feature I think coming that is actually part of Google One right now, but is just going to be part of the Pixel drop experience, and part of the Pixel is a built-in VPN. This is just a necessary thing in the world we're in right now, to have a VPN, especially when you're in public areas using public Wi-Fi's or on a plane. You really need to use a VPN, which is called a virtual private network. It essentially encrypts your data. Trying to capture your IP and your data will not be able to, because it's all encrypted. So this is another great feature that I think is coming to Pixel users. This is some of the stuff that you get with the direct Google experience that you don't get on others. Now obviously some others offer other features that you may prefer over the Pixel experience, but Pixel experience is great. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself what you're looking for in a phone, but as a result, this is what helps with the Pixel experience and makes it one of a kind in a sea of many smartphones, and great smartphones in today. There's not really a bad smartphone you can get, but there are a few that are great. And this year, the Google 7 and 7 Pro have become great phones. So at the end of the day, I believe this is definitely a viable update, and for sure a lot of great refinements in this year's model. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.